where you come from.
And a very good early morning to all of you out there who, despite the hour, have got up for this historic occasion in South African sport.
As South Africa and India mark 30 years of friendship, we look to the next 30 years with even greater anticipation.
We have millions watching this telecast right now.
50th Test match 100 for the great man.
If you don't have the belief that you can win the series here, there's no point.
Hello, and welcome to the full Quota Podcast. My name is Mpho and Tim. As I try get through this, some of the gremlins that have crept in, and there's a full Quota Podcast. My name is Mpho and Tim, and I've got Tim Del Lace with us today, as we always do every week. We discuss all things happening in South African cricket. But what's happened this week and is happening this past month has been the South African India Test Series. And we are here to review the Test Series 24 hours later after the heroics of Captain Dean Algar scoring 96 on the day 4 after the pretty much large portions of the day where it was rained out, in tough batting conditions, batting last on the Wanderers pitch to do something that no other captain in South African cricket has done, and that's win a test match against India at the Wanderers. Dean Algar he was brimming from ear to ear in that press conference, and deservedly so, because he fought through a lot. He copped a lot of balls on the body in that fourth innings, and similar to 2018, South Africa was set 241. They got bowled out for 177. Dean hung his bat then. This time, he hangs his bat in victory. So the series is leveled. And to some people who thought it would be a 3-0 whitewash to India, sorry for you. South Africa somehow has some fight in them, and we love it. Tim, how are you doing, my friend?
All good. All the better for the win yesterday.
Yes, no, loving the win. I think somebody noted on one of my WhatsApp groups that the sun is shining a little bit brighter today. It's always slightly better when the approaches, when you kind of feel a little bit better.
Indeed.
Okay, Tim. So when we look at this test match, when we started this test match, day one, we knew that it would be a low-scoring affair. I think in the previous review, when we previewed this test, we said 250 could be a match-winning score. And it kind of turned out to be something like that in that first innings when South Africa, being put into bat, on a decision I was questioning for a couple of days to say, yes, I don't want to bat last on this wicket, but I want the best of the bowling conditions at the Wanderers. I want to put a team under pressure. And with my batting lineup, with KL Rahul being the captain, with Virat Kohli being injured, I thought maybe that could have worked. But it kind of backfired on India being bowled out for 200.
Yeah. Even KL mentioned in the press conference, he said that they lost it on the first day. They needed to get to 300, somehow get to the magic 300 that everybody talks about when they play in South Africa. And they let themselves down, particularly in that first innings. And then it wasn't so much always having to fight back, but it was always difficult for them. Even from that situation, it was always difficult. Even though they had periods where they were on top of us, they're nagging at the back of their minds. They were realizing that first inning score just wasn't enough on this wicket.
And to a certain extent, which was quite interesting when I heard that from KL Rahul in the press conference. I felt that actually, for I'd say 55% of the game, India were in it. Apart from that first innings where they were bowled out, their bowlers backed them up very well. Yes, South Africa got bowled out for 229, which I thought was a testament of the skill that the Indian bowlers had. And I kind of felt having them bowl South Africa out for 229 kind of brought them back into the game. In that second innings, they batted really well to kind of push them. That 240 for me was a winning total for India. But looking at how South Africa bowled in that first innings, first session was a little bit wayward. I was expecting that. It required a little bit of patience from the South African bowlers, but they came through in that first innings really well. Marco Jansen bowled better than the man we were expecting to bowl well at the Wanderers, and Duan Olivier coming back in. But Duan came out with 3 wickets in that first inning, Kagiso with 3 wickets, and Marco with 4. But the interesting thing was Kagiso and Duan's speeds in that first innings, they were very low. And it was surprising to many. Were you surprised at how slowly Duan bowled in this, and Kagiso as well?
I was surprised in more in the latter, because we've seen Rabada rein himself in. We've seen him do that now for a little while, where he conserves his energy for particular spells, like a second inning spell where the game was just turned on its head. Duan's is a concern for me. Okay, it's 1 test match. He's back into the Proteas fold. But if that continues, then his strength in the side becomes very much diminished in terms of his skills and his abilities as a bowler. One of his abilities is to bowl with extreme pace and to get the batsman playing too late because it's too quick for them. He said himself that he doesn't look at the speed gun, and I have no doubt that's true. How he's bowling in his rhythm and in his run up is more important. Which again, you hear that mentioned a lot by not just by him, by fast bowlers in general. But it definitely was a concern. What I would say, you can maybe tell me because you were there, but a lot of the journalists that were there were saying that he was not bowling as slow as the speed guide was suggesting. Yes, he was down on what he was bowling for the Lions in domestic season, but he wasn't bowling mid 120s. There was 3 or 4 of them said the same thing. They said he's down on pace, but he isn't bowling that slowly. But
yes,
it is a concern.
I had an interesting conversation with some of the SuperSport commentators on this, because they were saying that they had asked a certain coach who played against Duan at the Wanderers. So you can figure out who that is if you go back to our review sessions. And he said that Duan was already slow in that match. And in that match, he looked okay-ish to me. It was slower than what I expected him to be, but sometimes when you are already running through guys, you don't have to exert a lot of pressure, because at the Wanderers, you get extra pace, you get extra bounce, and everything just looks over the top because effectively Wanderers is like arriving to a jumping castle, and you literally are you don't even need to do much. You just need to land the ball and it will explode on a length. And what those SuperSport commentators were saying was that he's not, even though he's taken all these wickets at a pace, it was a reflection on the poor batting rather than the bowling, But then my counter argument was he's still the best of the rest, regardless of whether the batters were poor. But so that was my one worry. However, Marco Jansen coming through in that light to say that, wait, hold up. Could this kid already be our number 4 seamer going forward? I know I wanted Duan. I know I'm a Lions and I know what Duan's done this season. But the way Marco Jansen bowled in these first 2 tests tells me he's got something even more special than our Colpack King, Duan Olivier. And I would like that. I like seeing that. And he's also a left-arm seamer. Kind of helps. It kind of works. And his 4 wickets are a testament to what it was, because Duan, remember, Kagiso and Duan at the first hour, what is it? They weren't bowling well. They were slightly wayward. But when Marco and Lungi came in, on that day, they took the first wicket, or Lamarca took the first wicket. He opened up an end. They bowled also economically. So that was something that I looked and was like, wait, we've got something in this kid. I like it. I just want us to manage him really well. And there is an argument that at Centurion, and it's an increasing one, and I must concede to it, that at Centurion, the selectors possibly made the right reason, because it feels like this kid was bowling with a lot more control and a lot more accuracy and quickly enough than Duan. Yes, we got to understand that maybe Duan's COVID symptoms may have had an issue in the speeds being low, but we don't want him in the side to bowl 130s and bowl full on or stump. That's Lungi's job. Lungi's job is that. Lungi's the skill guy. Kagiso's got skill and pace and he's menacing. That's him on his own. Anur's the enforcer. You wanted the enforcer that South Africa used in Sri Lanka, well, unsuccessfully at times, but in that Pakistan series, he just dominated them. It wasn't there. And my question to us is, could Marco be our enforcer going forward as the reserve seamer when Anur becomes fit? Because I feel as though I understand Duan brought the skills, he wants to bowl full and whatever it is, but I needed him at the Wanderers to be more menacing. And we didn't get that in the first innings. We didn't get that in the second innings. And we'll talk about how poorly South Africa bowled in the second innings. I was just not happy. But it was honest even at the end. We saw glimpses in that first innings from a batting perspective, Tim. South Africa showing us something that they had. Keegan Peterson showed us he's got something. But he got 50 and he got to just over 15, got out. Temba, same thing. Centurion vibes, gets to 50, get out. But Temba's having a purple patch. But it's still very frustrating. But those two scores were worth a lot more than what they let up.
Now, certainly, there's absolutely no doubt. That second innings batting was extremely impressive. From every individual that played in that second innings played towards that win. You had Markham. Markham is struggling. There's no doubt about it. He is struggling. But he said, you know what? There's going to be a ball here that's going to get me. But I'm going to get to as many runs as I can as quickly as possible. I'm going to play my natural game, go forward. He scores 31 at run a ball. That gets South Africa to 47 without loss. That's a really, it's a good partnership. It's a solid partnership. It gives us a base. Dean Algar takes an absolute battering for 2/3 of his innings. He's just the rock of the side. Keegan was excellent. Keegan was absolutely superb. Again, the decent start that we had allowed him to be able to play his natural game. He didn't feel the pressure of the situation. He just said, you know what? I'm just going to play my natural game, work the singles, rotate the strike, make sure the bowlers are thinking about what they're doing, not allowing himself to get boxed into a corner. Bafuma, really, 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 really impressive in both innings. I know I'm talking more about the second innings, but that second innings is how we should be playing. That is how we should be playing Test cricket. That there is a perfect. We can argue about who should be where, but that is exactly the.
And there's a point people made on our.
Yeah, the brain of how Boucher plays his cricket when he was playing. That's how he plays. That is how we're gonna win games if we do it on a more consistent basis. That's the next thing. Do that on a more consistent basis.
We've finally seen after 2 years this what did he call it? Hardened cricket, but it was only hardened because there was one man taking blows, and that was Dean Algar in that second innings. But South Africa coming into the second half of the game with a 27 lead, you wanted it to be a little bit more closer to 60. Our lower order, a middle to lower order, were I was disappointed in. And one of the things, a couple of things, I think Werner speaks about it in the comment section Marco Jansen batting at 7, really lovely. Gave us a lot of some runs, but it didn't feel like it was enough. Keshav gave us some runs, even though Keshav's inclusion was a question because he only bowled two overs. But from a batting perspective, he gave us 16 runs. But the question will remain: if we had the 7th batter, could he have scored more than 16? First of all, that's the first one, and secondly, could he have? And if he did, would it have been a difference? And I think the answer with the way the match went was probably yes. I think India needed 30-40 more runs to be a lot more comfortable. And to a certain extent, had we had that 7th batter and gotten to about a lead of about 50-60, this game would have been a lot more comfortable going into victory rather than the uncertainty we had at the start of day 4 or the middle of the day, when we didn't know whether it was going to be the game in 2018 where we were 120 for 1 and we were bowled out for 177. So looking at that, and I know hindsight's a perfect science, you still needed the middle order to do something, the lower order to do something. I was just disappointed in the way that they apply themselves. And I'm going to include Calvarena in that because there was a period in that second day, in that lunch session, when him and Timber were batting very well. But there's a technical flaw in Calvarena's game that just similar to what Aiden's struggling with the straight ball. Calvarena is struggling to get his front foot across and cover the straight ball with the bat, because I think it's coming from an angle, and that kind of gave India an opening when for that first 40 minutes him and Timber were making hay while the sun shined, and in my head it kind of felt like India were trying to suss out Calvarena, and then they found the weakness and then they went in for it. But then the guys at the back also couldn't score a few more runs. Like, you kind of felt like that was a moment. Had South Africa lost, I would have gone back to be like the tail. Yes, Marco scored, I think, 21 runs. Kesh scored 16, but KG and Duan and Lungi and Kyle couldn't come through with a few more runs. We needed guys to bat with a little bit more responsibility lower down, especially in a low scoring game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we need to think seriously. I wouldn't do it this test match, because I think the spin is going to play a part at Newlands. But I do think seriously going forward, we need to think seriously about 7-4 combination. 7 bats with 4 bowlers. I think we need to really, but that is an argument for another day. But for Cape Town, as much as I didn't think that Maiwa should have played this test, he's got to play at Newlands.
Yes. Werner saying that something to keep in mind as well is that Jansen might not have been as attacking with the bat if he had Ryan Rickleton on the other end. So he might have lasted longer and formed a bigger partnership. And that's essentially what is something that if I was Dean and Mark, I'd try to look to improve, to figure out how can I get, because the runs India gets in that Shardul Thakur, Ravi Ashwin axis with Mohammad Shami and Jasprit Bumrah, even in that second innings, those runs, because remember, India were 150 for 6. They got to, well, the lead was 150, and they'd fallen, there were 6 down at the time when we went into to lunch on day 3. And then afterwards, it ballooned. They scored 80 runs for 4 wickets. And that's the stuff that South Africa, it's the pain South Africa gets inflicted. Like, South Africa concede that, but we need to be able to put that away. Because even if we look back, if South Africa end up losing, it was that period after lunch on day 2. Yes, the first morning, the first hour was just, I don't understand why we start games, but it was that period where Bumrah and Shami and Ashwin and Shardul Thakur were just going at it. But that's what it was. Looking at that second innings, and we'll talk about India towards the back end of the show, South Africa bowling, starting an innings, starting a session, was one of the most schoolboyish starts I've ever encountered. Over the past year or so, this team has started very slowly, off the mark, and you ask yourself what's being discussed, or because you see them warm up. So here's the thing. arrive at the Wanderers or any stadium, and even at Newlands, you'll see them warming up, bowling at a length or bowling at cones. And then you go into the game situation. Yes, there's adrenaline. Yes, there's pressure. But the only person who was repeating the stuff or the things was like Marco and Lungi to a certain extent. But the session was just wayward. And I have to go back to say that, like, my point's always been, if you're an underdog, you better be buttoned up. You better know how to do. But they just weren't there. And in as much as this win looks so convincing, because it's a 7-wicket win, there were moments where you sat there going, we just kept on bringing India back into the game unnecessarily. And it essentially, even with allowing guys, like, I know there's obviously, who was it? Pujara and Rahane played for India for years. For this past decade, it's been them. They have so much experience, and it was really lovely to see them fight back on the night before, at the end of day 2, and also in the morning. But they were under so much pressure, especially after what they did in the first innings. First innings only scored one run between each other, And as South Africa, you let them off the hook, and you let them dominate you and bring India back into the game to the point where before the 4th inning started, we'd already written the side off and were like, well, it's another loss to India. Congratulations on winning the series. Our bowling hasn't been up to standard. And in a series like this, yes, we haven't played cricket, and India played a lot of cricket. Yes, the bowling loads are not there. Yes, maybe our domestic setup's not that great. But you at least need to follow the plan. You can't just come here and bowl whatever it is. And I know there's rumors that Dean had words with Kagiso and everything else. There was a spell where Kagiso took 3 wickets after lunch where you kind of felt like, yes, this is the KG. But it's not the KG that we know, because spells like that from KG normally take 6 wickets, 5 or 6 wickets. They don't take 3, and something's not right. But how would you characterize our bowling in the second innings? Because I was not impressed.
Well, that last 40 minutes before the end of the day, when Pujara and Rahane decided to take the attack, play the positive approach, what I was waiting for, and I couldn't understand, what I was waiting for is just one of them to go, you know what? We've got 2 early wickets. Let's rein it in. Let's rein it in and keep it tight. This is Rahane and Pujara. Have you seen his strike rate? Pujara. You just rein it in. You bowl that 4th stump, and you just bowl tight. You bowl that line. Don't look for wickets. You get a standard field. You just keep things tight. Tight circle of the 30-meter mark. And I couldn't understand it. Short, wide, half volley after half volley. All these, looking for these wonder balls, in-swinging Yorkers and things, low form tosses.
Do you know what I even
I
wanted?
was desperate. I was saying, just bowl straight. Somebody, bowl straight.
No, I was like, stop the game. To the point where I think there was a first LBW appeal on day 3 that was like going over leg, wide, on down leg, over the stumps, and the game had stopped. And I was like, Dean, it was like 30, 40 minutes into the game. I was like, Dean, take the review, just so that I could shout at them. Or not me, but him. Yeah. I would go down and shout at him myself. Yeah. Just to be like, guys, what are you doing? Just to take to... Because and this is what India struggled with, I think, yesterday, was that they couldn't stop the game. Once Dean and Rassi got into some groove, and because you sometimes get into a groove and you start bowling badly because you just always been bowling badly, and you just get into that bad bowling groove, and there's no way to stop it. And one of the ways to stop it is to have a break in play, an unnatural break in play, and that's like a DRS. Or even something else. I know Dale likes to say he would bowl a maiden over, and he'd bowl it full, he'd bowl it wide, those types of balls where he plays catch with the keeper, right? That's what Dale would say. And you needed something like that. India needed something like that in that yesterday. But South Africa needs to be able to understand that they need to take time, because you are giving the world's most... Because the problem was there's no Kohli. Right? Kohli's not there. it's Pujara and Rahane. You don't want them in a low-scoring game when you have India on the back foot. You've got them on the corner. They're swaying on as a boxer being beaten up, and you are now like, okay, no, it's fine. I'm gonna take the things. I'm gonna bowl half volleys wherever you want. I'm gonna bowl half volleys, and it was just disappointing. But I'm happy we got that KG spell. We got to see that. We got more of that at Newlands. Tim, before we move on, let's bring in Teppo and get his views on the game. Hey Teps, how you doing, my man? And we can't hear you, Teppo. Can you hear him, Tim?
No.
Okay.
Okay, you much.
Okay, he'll be back. Yeah. So from so that was the one thing that I had, right? Now, looking at the way India batted in that second innings, there was some things, and let's look at India before we talk about that last innings. That last innings deserves like 10 minutes alone. India without Virat Kohli, he had back spasms. He'll probably be back for Newlands. Mohammad Siraj obviously pulled up early on day one, so they were essentially a half a bowler down. But they still bowled pretty well. They bowled very well. I thought they bowled better than South Africa for large parts of the match, apart from yesterday, and that was like a session. But their batting as well had a lot more questions than answers. The only person who's batting actually very well is KL Rahul, whereas all the others, you kind of have a question about them. And yes, Pujara and Rahane got runs, and that's good for their confidence going forward. But it's something that the South Africans can exploit.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think the problem they had. Hello, Triple, you can hear us? Good. All right, man.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome.
Hey.
Yes, we can.
Yes, Tim, let's get back
to
to you.
Yeah, so the Indian batting. The problem with the Indian batting was they thought like us. They thought 200 was enough. They looked at that wicket, they saw the uneven bounce, they saw the inconsistencies, and they thought, you know what? Let's get as many as we can, as fast as we can. So they were scoring quite quickly, but they actually, in hindsight, they needed 300. They were probably 50, 60 short. And they've got a problem with somebody like Pant. Now, you can play attacking cricket and test cricket. We've seen that, and we see it continue. But you can't be brainless. I'm sorry. You can't play a shot like that in a situation like that. If you get out to a good ball, playing a cover drive and it's caught to the covers, fair enough. Playing a shot like that, this is not T20 cricket. I thought from 6 down, they all sort of went into T20 mode. And I was waiting like a bowlers. I was waiting for one of them to go, you know what? Let's just rein it in. We're under pressure here. Let's rein it in. Score 10 in the next half an hour. Just get our eyes in and make sure we get to 275 plus. But they just kept giving the wickets away. So that was a huge concern from an Indian perspective. I think that they bought the second half of the innings. They got it horribly wrong. They misjudged the situation. Of course, the other thing that didn't play in their part was the wickets did actually get slightly better.
Yeah, got better by the day.
By the end of the day, it was actually not that bad. From the first couple of days, but that's certainly something that they need to work on. Is how to be positive against us without being reckless.
Yes, Teppo, we go in innings by innings, so we've just got into like the Indian third innings, and we're just kind of characterize the Indian performance entirely. But from the first 3 days of play, South Africa, obviously in India at the Wanderers, what did you make of South Africa's performance in the first 3 days? We're going to talk about Dean Alga and Temba and everybody else about how they carried yesterday. But from a batting perspective, how did you like South Africa? What do you think of South Africa? What do you think of South Africa from a bowling perspective? Let's start with that.
So thanks for having me once again. What I was saying before my laptop was out was sorry I haven't been here in such a long time, but good to be back. But yes, the South African batting, let's start there. The first question you gave me. Dean Algar, solid at the top. He did get 28 at the beginning. And there was a decent, not in the first innings, wasn't a decent partnership. But Keegan Peterson, most importantly, got himself some runs. He's been looking good for most of his scores under 20, has been scoring relatively freely, or at least punishing the bad deliveries and waiting for them and putting the bowlers under pressure. But looking at this lineup, continuing down to Themba Bavuma, once the top five started clicking, once the partnership started coming together and they started getting control, they actually looked pretty good. I know you did ask about the first 3 days, but I mean, just going to the fourth innings, it was 31 from Markram, 96 from Algar, 28 from Keegan Peterson, Rassie van der Dussen contributed 40, and Themba Bavuma had 23 not out. So they did show that if they apply themselves, if you try to stay in as long as you can, you're never going to be in. As we saw, you get to a half century and then you go out, but you can make some hard runs, and the South Africans did well to make those hard runs, especially in the second innings. In the first innings, not so much. The lower order also had a few contributions. Keshav Maharaj contributing with 21, so he didn't just hang around, which is good to see, a useful 21, and also from Marco Jansen in his second test. So you can see the pieces of the puzzle. You can see the plans with the batting lineup that the coaching staff want to get. Everybody, or at least there are some people putting their hands up, which is pretty good to see. In terms of the Indians, Lokesh or KL Rahul at the beginning of the first innings did pretty well with Mayank Agarwal, although the South Africans were a little bit sloppy, but you need to take advantage of that. But then after that, just collapses. Pujara Rahane not contributing first innings, but came through in the second. Rishabh Pant looked a little bit too aggressive. So did R. Ashwin and Shadal Thakur. Thakur, he went out with the fifth ball, literally trying to play a shot, but playing it straight to the man at gully. And Ashwin, he did well for his 46, playing it late off the back foot. So there were chances for you to get big runs. You could go into T20 mode. You could go gung-ho, but it showed that not everybody's going to survive at the bottom of the order. Everybody needs to make sure that they contribute valuable runs, and every wicket counts. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Temple, one last question from us. What did you make of our bowling? Obviously, Duan and KG were bowling a lot slower. And obviously Marco took the 4 wickets in the first innings. And second innings they looked at times like without a plan. But what did you make of it?
Very interesting to see that the pace at which the South African quicks were bowling at, not ramping it up to 140. The amount, like you could see on the side screen, every time a South African bowler hit 140, it was celebrated because it was that special, which was very interesting. One thing that bothers me about, I guess, KG Rabada and Dwalin Olivier on day one was just it was pretty sloppy at the beginning. It looked very toothless. It looked like they needed like some sort of fire to be lit under them. And even in the press conference, Dean Algar's press conference after the game, someone asked what was he able to do, or how did he get KG's fire lit for those 3 wickets in the second innings? And that's basically what we're seeing with the South African bowlers. Sometimes they look fantastic. They're hitting the good lengths. They're putting batters under pressure with not just good lines, good lengths, beating the bat, but short balls directed well. But then other times for spells, they just go wayward. That the Pujara-Rahane partnership that you're talking about, it wasn't good to watch from a bowling perspective. But it's good to see that they can arrest it. But what I would like to see is that sort of happens earlier. So it feels like a very inexperienced, well, it doesn't feel like an inexperienced lineup, but it feels like there's tons of talent and there are just kinks that need to be ironed out. one thing I think we have to also mention Keshav Maharaj. I think the team got it wrong with the selection there. Didn't really bowl him at all. He did contribute. It's not like he was just a passenger, but he literally just bowled 2 overs in 2 innings, and they were basically overs to give him an over. It was at the end of I think just before lunch in the first innings, and then just before the end of play in the second innings. So yeah, they got it wrong, but it's good to see they contributed.
Okay, Tim, let's go to day 4. All right. We arrive on day 4 and it's raining. Raining throughout the day. We were told obviously 2 o'clock it'll stop, but it did. We need time to get the pitch ready, 75 minutes. We got the 75 minutes, 3:45. We literally have less than 2 hours. Play could have gone to 6:30, but it would have been very dark, right? So you have about just under 2 hours to play this thing, to complete the session. And the thinking around this, everybody, is to try see out the day. Don't lose any wickets. Don't lose 4 wickets, but see out the day, because the Indians have been bowling better than the South Africans. They've been making the South Africans play a lot more than the South Africans have made the Indians play. And I felt at that point in time, South Africa needing 122 to win. I thought India was ahead coming into that game, into that day. Especially in that period, it's gloomy. The conditions could have changed. It could have been even worse. The crack could have even widened that Shardul Thakur just kept on bombing into. And then India picked up the same disease the Proteas had at the start of day 3. They were wayward for 40 minutes, and it was the 40 minutes that cost them the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely. They were worried at the straps on the last day for whatever reason. Whether the delay played a part, and it interfered with their plans. Whether they thought they were looking at the weather report for the following day and realizing there's going to be very little cricket on the last day, whether that might have played a part, and they just kind of thought, well, all we have to do is go through the motions. South Africa are not going to score these runs on this day. They'll be 40 or 50 short, and it'll be a draw. But for whatever reason, they just were not at the straps at all. I also thought, previous people asked me yesterday, they asked me about KL's captaincy. Now, I didn't have any problems with KL's captaincy for the first couple of days. Cricket was so fast-paced, there was not much to go wrong. There was not so much that I could put my finger on. On that last day, I could not understand how they underused Ashwin. I could not. It made no sense to me.
Wait. Underused?
Yeah. Underused.
Because we thought, why are you bowling Ashwin to open up the innings?
Well, I wouldn't have opened with him. I thought that was crazy. I didn't understand it. It had to be pace. When I say underused, I'm talking about Rassie. He bowls.
Oh.
Rassie was at about 4. He got an inside edge to leg slip, just bounced short. He bowled a couple of overs and then was off. Rassie hadn't a clue.
Yes, Tim, and the over before they took him off. Before they took him off, he had Rassie squared up in front of his stumps, and all Rassie's saving grace there was that his bat was in the way. It looked, and then they took him off, and then you're sitting there going, I didn't agree with you starting with Ashwin, but why take him off when you have Rassie in a little bit of a corner?
Rassie hadn't a clue. And if Rassie had gone early, Temper would have come in a lot earlier. Temper had been dismissed. I think it could have been a very, very different conversation that we'd be having today. So I think a whole lot of reasons that went into it. They just got it horribly wrong, India, on that last day. and
But then,
we were superb.
yes, the batting, unbelievable. I still have an issue with Aiden Markham playing straight balls. That's something I will always have. But they gutsed it out. They fought, especially like I know everyone's going to talk about Dean copping the ball in the head. Rassie went through a whole lot of drama in that period. Like even before we went off on day 3 to Ashwin, that spell to him, I just was like, dude. And then the ball's cutting back in from Bumrah and Rassie having the confidence to leave outside off stump, shouldering his arms, and you're like, wow. Like, wow. Like, I was in awe of a man who the last 2 tests, he got dismissed like this at the West Indies. What was it? It wasn't Jaden Seals. It was the other, I think the 40-year-old West Indian fast bowler who plays for
Roach.
Sorry. Yes, Kemar Roach. Yes. And then it happened again at Centurion. And I'm sitting there going, dude, I'd be batting everything down on off stump. But he left while the ball was jagging back. Bumrah was looking for that ball to jag back, the one that had his name on. It didn't arrive. But he was under pressure, hasn't scored a lot of runs. People are thinking he's the one who's going to move out. And then he answered his critics the way we know Rassie to do. The fighter, that partnership between him and Dean was probably one of the most, it wasn't the most pretty watching to start off with. It got prettier towards the back end, but it was what I say when Teppo says his team's an experience, and I say, no, this team knows how to get out of these moments because they've played cricket for like 3 years together. So I loved watching it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Teppo,
I agree.
That batting spell. Like, yes, you can talk about India's bowling as well, but day 4, like, what were you thinking day 4 coming into the commentary box when South Africa's now walking out to bat, and you're like, what would you want South Africa to be at the end of day 4?
So first thing in the morning, waking up, I saw some rain and I celebrated as a South African fan, knowing that I would give the bowling team a little bit of trouble. If the outfield just stayed wet, it would give the bowling team trouble. And then it just rained for most of the day. They tried to keep it as dry as possible. There were even times when the Indian bowlers gave the ball to the umpires to try change it. And I know that you asked about the South African batting, but you do need to take into account where the Indians' heads were at. They looked frazzled. They looked like they didn't want to play. And what you need to do as a batting side, you need to take advantage of that. And they did. They made it very difficult to lose their wickets, or they didn't throw their wickets. And at the same time, they kept building partnerships. And partnerships is the key of that 4th innings. I believe it was 47, the first wicket partnership, then 48. So very good for Aiden Markham and Dean Algar to get 48 or 47. It's the first time they've done it in quite some time. So that's good news. Keegan Peterson and Dean Algar have been looking good together. Even in Centurion, they were looking good together because it seems that Aiden Markham is usually the one that he just needs to arrest this slump in form. Did get a few runs. That's good. But then the partnership just continued. And it just felt like the nuggetiness of Dean Algar was just sort of put into his batting partner. And what they were able to do was just score runs. They occupied the crease and they scored runs. They made contributions and everybody put their hand up. And that was fantastic to see. Literally no one scoring under 28. So it looks like 23. Starting to click. 23, sorry. It looks like they're starting to click, which is good. I know that you asked on the day, is this the sign of a turn for the South Africans? Are we taking a turn? You know what? Possibly. Dean Algar has been talking about the way he plays is how he wants to captain. And we're seeing that that's what we saw in the 4th innings.
Yes. For me, it was the mentality of, and Dean said this when I asked him the question in the presser, Dean was like, he said, he doesn't want to leave it to somebody else. He wants to do the job. He went out yesterday to do the job. It just so happened that as you say, Tempo, as the ball got wet, the Indians started complaining about the ball, and then you started seeing them. And this is typical of a Virat Kohli India side over the past 7 years in Test cricket. When things don't go well for them, they start looking for things, talking to the ref, talking to the umps, start chirping. They start doing all these things other than letting their play speak for themselves. There's the confident chirp, but there's also the chirp of I'm losing. Similar to the whole Marco Jansen, Jasper Brummer situation. At that point in time, South Africa were in trouble. They were in a hole. And everyone's praising Marco Jansen. I'm not, because you are allowing your emotions to take over. South Africa like to use the short ball as their attack option when their backs are against the wall, and that's fine. But you need to somebody needs to be the adult in the room. The calmest team on the day will end up winning. And you don't need to engage. Yes, bowl the short ball. You can talk all he wants. That's fine. He's showing you that he's getting frazzled. Walk away. Don't engage. And cooler heads prevailed, and the team with the calmer heads prevailed yesterday. I was happy that South Africa ended up pulling away. But India were trying to get South Africa with a lot of LBWs yesterday. They were trying to get them with the Indaka. They were trying to bowl a lot straighter. Their lines were slightly off, and they got punished. And that is what the Wanderers gives you. It got easier to bat, fine. But what I loved about that Rassie-Dean Alga partnership was that normally those two stop the game for South Africa. When Rassie's in, his strike rate's around the 30s. Dean's strike rate's under 50. And it kind of stops the game. But yesterday, they got the singles, they moved. Yes, they got some easy runs and easy fours, but the score ticked along, and I think they got a lot more comfortable with the scoreboard movement, because those two are comfortable sitting and being a menace by just stopping the game for the bowlers and then waiting for the bowlers to bowl to them. It just got a lot easier for them very early on day 4. Tempo, do you have something to say? And I think Tip was frozen, Tim.
I think it's frozen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chop was gone.
Okay. No, I've taken him off. Once he unfreezes himself, we'll bring him back on. To close off, I wanted to talk about going into Newlands, right? What do you expect? You're in Cape Town. What do you expect from that Newlands track? How do you think it's going to play, and who do you think will have the advantage?
Well, it's interesting because I was asked this question yesterday with an Indian podcast, and I said to them at the beginning of the series, I said, if India are 1-1 going to Cape Town, then they are going to win the series. I said that Cape Town is the pitch that's going to favour them the most.
Mm-hmm.
Cape Town is the pitch that's going to favour Ashwin and his expertise the most. But what I expected is us to win at Centurion and lose at the Wanderers, because that's why India are so strong. Yeah, and that's kind of how I went about it. Because of how it's turned out, I'm now leaning towards us. I'm now leaning towards South Africa.
Okay.
It just feels that the camp within the Indians is not everybody's happy. Not everybody's happy, and I'm not convinced. I think that the Pujara and Rahane 50s are actually going to count against them. India needed to play. So, can I speak? Yeah. India needed to play. Yeah, India needed to play Shreyas Iyer in this series. They needed to have somebody who was attacking along with Kohli. They needed to have the two of them in there in the 11. I think they're going to go conservative. They're going to go with the same 11 outside of, obviously, Kohli's going to come back and Siraj is probably not going to play. So they'll probably bring in Sharma. So I'm leaning towards South Africa. South Africa's camp, to me, seems a happier one. and I use what happened with the Rabada situation as a point of reference. Now, I'm not always keen on that coming out publicly, but everybody gets a kick up the arse every now and again. Staines had it, AB de Villiers has had it, Mulder's had it in the series, and now Rabada. I just think it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Rabada is not, on cloud nine. He knows that he wasn't. There were large parts of the test match he wasn't quite right. And he corrected that, and he was fantastic, and he responded brilliantly. I just think that we are a little bit happier with the way things that we're going. We're happy with the direction that we're going. We're a little bit more settled. So I'm leaning towards us, but only just. But I do think Spin is going to have a huge say, and I do think Maharaj may well have an influence on this test match in the same way that I think Ashwin will.
Look, obviously Cape Town's become a lot flatter than we've known it to be over the past couple of years. So I agree with you that Spin's going to play a key role. So finally, Dean's going to show us what a spinner is. Even though I do think if you want to have a spinner, because for instance, I look at Ajaz Patel, right? 10 wickets in an innings in India. Next test match in New Zealand, he does not even feature in the test squad. We should be okay with that as a country. We should be okay with that as a team because it's a squad. It's not a team. And if Keshav wants a spot in the side, Keshav needs to bat at 7. Keshav needs to be our all-rounder. Keshav needs to be our JP Germany. If he can't do that, right, and work on his batting, then it's fair that he gets dropped on tracks like that. Because if I'm only going to bowl 2 overs of spin, might as well bowl Dean Elgar. Dean's taken wickets before, So for me, that's the Keshav argument. He's going to play at Newlands. I agree with you that the momentum has shifted to South Africa. However, in this test series, the momentum has swung on every hour. Every hour, momentum swings. And it's not like the Ashes where Australia have held the momentum from day one and they're just running through it. It's not like
India they held the momentum 2 weeks beforehand.
Exactly. Yes, and then that's what it was. But it's not as though India are so far behind South Africa from a confidence of they just had one bad session. They had 2 bad hours of cricket when they, if you look at a balance of probabilities, have played the better cricket in this series throughout. So it's 1-1, but I still think India have the edge. They've got the bowlers who can do it. They have a much better batting lineup than us, even though you've got Rahane and Thingy. And even though South Africa scored 243 for 3 to get to the win, and they could have probably gone over 300, the mark of a great test side or a great test player or anybody in international sport is to be able to repeat it again. And the question for South Africa at Newlands will be, on a pitch that requires you to score 350 to 400 to put yourself in the driving seat, can you repeat it again? And for me, and sitting here, I hope they can. I hope they've figured out what they needed to do. There are 2 guys I'm worried about, and I'll talk about them. But I hope they've now understand that they can do this. Because when you play test cricket, right? Like even if, I think the example is made to me. Sachin Tendulkar's played 166 test matches. He's played in about over 300 test innings, 166 by 2. Because I'm assuming he batted in all the innings he's played in. Right? So that's 222. He's only scored 50 hundreds in that period. Right? So you fail more than you succeed. So you go into that. So you cannot let every failure go without you learning from it. So you can't waste a crisis. And so this team has failed quite a lot. Right? And so this is the one moment where you're like, okay, it seems like they're starting to get how to play Test cricket, to understand how to win a game of Test cricket. And so now you need to take the learnings from your victory and all the ones you've learned from your losses, and you need to apply it in a situation that's gotten even more pressure, because now you want to win a series to help you go up the rankings. You also want to also get points for the World Test Championship, and you also want to give yourself momentum and confidence going into the next year, because you're going to the number 2 ranked team in the world, that's New Zealand, away from home. Yes, they lost Bangladesh, and you're also going to play in England, which for batters is going to be another situation like batting in South Africa, right? It's going to be tough. So it's about now seeing what this team can do. So now you've shown us you can win a Test match at home against a team that's very good. Now it's time for you to show me if you can do it again. And I'd like to see how that batting lineup goes. The two guys I'm worried about, one, Aiden Markram. I understand he started playing some white ball cricket. In Pakistan, he was very compact. He was concentrated. He focused a lot. The straight ball, he played with a straighter bat in Pakistan. I remember we spoke about this, I think, before we even started this podcast, about how Aiden was dealt with the straight ball. He's done it before, right? And like with that whole failing mechanism, whatever it is, at least he now knows that he's done it before. He just needs to get himself back in. I feel like T20 has made him a lot looser and a lot more open to playing through cover than playing straight down the ground. So that's my or cover, and also mid-wicket than playing straight down the ground. Because you need I think the best Test match batters have always wanted to play straight down the ground, unless if you're Sachin. Sachin always played there. But Sachin also played straight. And he played straight a very long time. And so that's my thing with Aiden. And there was a discussion in our comms team and with the Supersport guys that they said, and yes, I knew I disagreed with this before. They thought that Aiden needs to drop at 4 because he's the best batter in the side. He's the one with the highest ceiling, largely because of this deficiency. Because the new ball will move around, so you're going to find himself in these problems. But with an older ball coming in slightly later, with the bowlers tired, with the way he bats, as aggressive as he does, you could actually put momentum back. They likened it to how KP batted, how AB batted. Whenever they came into Test cricket, they changed the momentum of the game, right? Because South Africa have got batters who are stoppers all around. So Rassi's like a guy who stops the game. Temba's more a guy who moves the game because he looks for singles. KP's kind of a stopper, and also Rassi, KP, and then obviously Dean's is a stopper. He bats on one side of the wicket and stuff like that. So that was the one guy, but they're going to bowl to him straight. So in these next couple of days, he needs to try and figure out a plan. I'd say middle stump guard, don't go on off. When you get to off, you need to get to off at the line of delivery so your head's in line with off stump, because it feels like he's already on off stump. By the time the ball's bowled, his head's already outside off stump, and that's why the bat's coming across at an angle. But that's me. But I know he can fix it. That's all I'm going to say about his technique. You cannot be suffering to a straight ball. The other player I'm worried about is Kyle Verreynne. From a technical perspective, Kyle scored all these runs in SA cricket, but technically, the straight ball like Aiden is gonna cause him a lot, get him out LBW a lot. And so, unless if the bowlers are bowling poorly, and he's smacking people to all ends, outside the off stump or short balls to him, he does that well. He needs to have a defense. He needs to work on a defense that's straight and comes down the line of off stump that he can play back to the bowler. He doesn't have that. All he does is he brings his pad forward and then the bat follows, and that's calls for LBW. And the pad's coming from middle. And instead of him being a lot more square on, he's a little bit more open, like he's playing for limited overs. But he'll learn. He's new. Keep him on the side. He'll learn. But I'm happy about that. I'm excited. I said no changes at all, unless if you want to make a change, Duan comes out. And unless if you guys want to see what Duan's going to do at Newlands, because I don't want to see a Duan bowling 120, not bowling short balls. So Duan comes out. I'd give Veer Mulder an opportunity. If not, maybe see if you can't give Glenton Steelman an opportunity. But because you want the batting that Van Mulder gives you, the potential of batting that Van Mulder gives you, he's going to be like Shardul Thakur to you, essentially, right? Before we go, Tim, Shardul Thakur had the test match of his life. Test match of his life. I think he took, and I'm going to try to get you all those numbers. So Shardul Thakur took, there was 7 wickets
in the first innings.
Yeah, and 8. So he took 8 wickets in this test match. He also batted really well. Well, he's got a duck in the first innings, but in the second innings, Shardul scored. I'm trying to get that. Oh, he got a duck, in the first innings. In the second innings, where's that? Here we are. And the second innings, Shardul Thakur scored 28 of 24, nearly changing the game. Sean Pollock made a comment to me saying the Lions have their overseas pro in Shardul Thakur. What did you make of that? Because I think he's the one Indian player who I sat up and said, oh, no, you have my attention. You truly have my attention, Shardul Thakur. You deserve to be in the side. I thought you were there for your batting. No, you're a much better bowler than I expected.
Look, he was good against Australia. Australia were a very different force back then. They weren't nearly as good as they are now. But I think he was excellent. He was absolutely excellent. And even when the situation was pretty much done and complete, he kept bowling. He said, "No, I'm gonna bowl. I'm gonna bowl my heart out." I'm pretty sure he would have been sore this morning when he woke up because he gave it everything. He absolutely gave it absolutely everything. There will be a tinge of South African batters going. Savage is 50%. We see of Bumrah and we see of Shami. Will be all right. I think that played a part. But Thakur, he's quicker than you think. That is the thing. He's quicker than you think. You think he's a little dibbly-dobbler, county bowler, like a Darren Stevens type, but he's a lot quicker than that. He gets it to zip off the wicket. And that is a huge asset of his. And he's underrated as a bad batter as well. He's got a genuine ability. I thought
he scored 3 half centuries in his 10 innings now, which is better than some of our low order batters combined.
Yeah. So I thought they would struggle without Jadeja, but you know what? In terms of batting, Thakur's been more than useful with his batting as well. So he's been a really, really impressive.
Yeah, no, very, very impressive, and that's the one thing about this Indian bowling lineup. You know, I know you say that obviously they weren't happy, they doesn't look happy, but their bowlers, their seamers are so much better than the South Africans by a mile.
They're playing away. They are playing away. Remember, and a large part of them have played like 2 games here. That's it, like 2 games.
If their batsmen could just bat to their averages, they would have won this test match really handsomely. But the other thing comes in mentally. Can India, because obviously they haven't won in South Africa. Every time they come to South Africa, it's always, oh man, we keep on losing. We keep on losing. They came in 2018. By the time they got to the third one, it was already 2-0. They already had lost 2-0. They fought hard. They should have won 1. They lost both. And every series India's gone to this decider, they've lost. They've lost. And so for me, the mental thing is to them now is going to come in. Can they do it? Can they do it? But the one thing is, if India wants to win it, they need to tell themselves, and they need to understand that they are better than South Africa. They are a better side than South Africa. And yes, there are moments where South Africa can can be world class, but those moments have come few and far between. Dean Alga's batting, that was a session. You know, Kagiso's spell was 30 minutes. You know, and they've ridden many waves throughout the series where they've come out on the other side, where the 50-50 moments, they've won more of those than South Africa has. And so for me, I'm like, if this is India's to lose, it has to be India's to lose. They've got the better spinner. They've got the better bowling at the seam attack. Got the better set of batsmen with Virat Kohli coming in. for Hamuna Vihari. The only thing that South Africa has on them is confidence. But then India can look back throughout the year and say, wait, we've won at Melbourne. We beat Australia in Australia. We've beaten, it's 2-1 in England. Yes, we left before the last test match, so it could be 2-2. We've gone to the World Test Championship final. Yes, we've lost, but we've also are the number one test side in the world. You need to look to those moments because you've come full circle now. And this is their moment. I don't think we've ever seen a series where India have gone 1-1 in South Africa into the final deciding test. It's always been 2-0 to South Africa. This is their moment. For South Africa, this is your moment to win another huge test series at home, to put yourself back on the map, to fight through all the drama, all the things that are happening at CSA and everything else, and your coach, whatever's going on in your team, or all the things around, whatever happened at the World Cup, SJN, this, whatever's going on, this is your moment to show the world that you, as a unit, as a team, as a Proteas team, are better, are getting through it, and you are a much stronger unit than everybody gives you. All those fancy words Dean was using in the press conference yesterday, they come to fruition at Newlands. You cannot get smacked, cannot get beaten. There's no getting bowled out for 200 here again. You need to step up. And I'm excited, Tim, sorry, not Dean, Tim. I'll see you at Newlands. You'll be listening to Tim, myself, and the whole One World Sports Radio crew at Newlands, bringing you this deciding test match. So many fortunes are lying here, because this could be the last test series for Rahane and Pujara. It could be the last for some people in the South African side. It could be the first of many for others. It could be where legends are born. But you can catch that all with us at One World Sports Radio on Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., 1WSR.com. Listen to us. It's going to be fun. Ashwin's going to be in his element. Maharaj is going to be in his element. Everybody's going to be in their element, because under the shadow of Table Mountain, we're going to have a decider, and I'm enjoying it. I'll enjoy it. Hope you do. Tim, thank you very much. We'll be back next week for the test series review. We'll have a winner. Yeah. We might have a shared series, which would be so bad because it'd be like kissing your sister. But anyway, outside of that, have a great weekend, Tim. See you on the other side. And everyone else, please remember, subscribe to our channel, and listen to us for ball-by-ball coverage. We have a decider, ladies and gentlemen. I never thought we'd get here. I thought one team would have won, but I didn't think it'd be South Africa. But outside of that, have a great day. Goodbye, good night, and le sale kakagiso.
Cheers.